I wanted to talk about 3 best times to enter a morning stand. One of the questions I get all the time is, when is the best time to enter a morning stand? And really the answer is there's no best time. There's no certain time to enter a tree stand. Every tree stand has a specific best time, but they may vary greatly from one to the other. So I wanted to discuss the 3 options that you have. And really it revolves around where are the deer. Very important to think about that. It's funny that people think about, okay, 1 hour before, half hour before, 2 hours before is the perfect time, and apply that to all stands with no thought to where the deer actually are at that stand at that time you're going in. And this applies to public land, private land, wherever it might be. There's always a good or best time for each stand. The first one we'll go with is the early. You know, a lot of people like to get in really early to a stand. Well, to me, to get in early to a stand, let's say hour before daylight, 45 minutes before, hour and 15 minutes, whatever that might be, I want to make sure that there are no downwind deer of that stand location before dark. And we've learned this the hard way. And all these strategies, for the most part, I've learned the hard way by making mistakes over the past 35 years, especially with bow hunting. So that stand location allows you to get in early. It has to have a few components and ingredients in order to do that. It has to have something block down your downwind. Obviously, it also has to have the aspect that you're entering that stand without spooking deer on the way in. So you're not walking through food sources, you're walking well around food sources. What I'm looking for when I'm in that stand location an hour before daylight is I want to look for an area downwind to me that deer can't go through. And that might be a steep rocky outcrop, might be a very steep drop, elevation change where deer do not go under. We talked about a great evening stand recently in a stand, and that stand is going to be a great rut cruising morning stand. I don't want to take a chance in the early season because it's an outstanding evening hunt stand. I don't want to take a chance of spooking deer out of that location in the morning sit to spite the evening sit. So that one during the rut is going to be outstanding though. And we can come in from the side and we can get into that stand in the morning, and because of the steep face on the downhill side, before those thermals start rising, before the air is starting to lift, when the temperatures are changing at daybreak, I can expect to get into that stand an hour early. I have to go through some field edge to get there, so if there's a chance I spook some deer in the fields that are a long ways away, and then I can get into that stand, let everything settle down, and I could have a buck coming from the other direction, different directions from where I spook deer from hundreds of yards away, and they'll come through there at daybreak or after daybreak. And that's a great location because there's a steep face there. I can blow my scent into that steep face. It's a cut, it goes steeply up the other side. Deer just have nowhere to go in there, they're pinned. And so I can safely blow my wind into that location before daybreak for hours if I wanted to sit there, as early as I could and as legal as it was to get into that stand. No different if I had a pond, a lake, a large waterway on my downwind side, a neighborhood, a pasture where you have fencing, deer don't go through or don't visit through there. Anywhere your downwind is blocked, then it's a great access to get around food sources, come in a back door, wait for the deer to come back to you, and then you're blowing your scent safely into a location where you don't expect a deer to be before daybreak. Because, think about it, if you're there an hour before daybreak, that's an hour that a buck or a deer that you're after can go downwind of you and you will spook them before it gets light, and your hunt is ruined, sometimes for weeks at a time, especially if it was a mature buck. He's going to be gone, and you just spooked him, and you did it before you even had a chance to hunt him because it's still under the cover of darkness. The second time I like getting into a stand, in a morning stand, is just in time. And I'll use these examples right here. This stand location that I'm talking about, we'll talk about this third, but there's a point that extends back into the woods here. And I have a stand location that I'm going to add. It's about 100 yards back. And I can access that stand. And once I'm on that point, the wind just blows off the bluff, and I can have the direction the deer are coming from, the wind blow right at me. It'll blow off that face, and then I'm safe once it gets daylight. Because I need those thermals to lift off of that, make sure that my scent is being lifted off and above our draw that goes back into our land. So I want that scent to just blow freely off that. And that's the location the wind's actually blowing right now. It's coming from left to right, going out to that point. I can get into that stand before daylight, come from the opposite direction where I go down through the draw, back up. Literally from the house, it might be a 10-15 minute walk down and up into that location. I don't want to get into that stand an hour before daylight because before daybreak, my scent's going to saturate the downhill area, and I could have the biggest buck in the woods walk below me, and he will smell me before those thermals lift off right at daybreak. So the best time is just in time, and I call that about 10 minutes, 15 minutes before shooting light. You're still using gray light to access your stand. You get right into that stand, you get right up. You can't afford to linger down below, play around, change outfits. You just have to get into the stand, climb up, and get ready as quickly and soon as possible, because something can come through. And you have to remember, until daybreak comes, until that sun starts to lift, then you're not going to get those lifting thermals, and that downhill area is going to be saturated, or the area behind you that you would have otherwise thrown your scent off of in that location before daybreak, when it gets daybreak. So the first one, you're getting in about an hour early, average. That second one, yeah, it could be 2 hours. It doesn't matter. I mean, whatever you guys think you need to get in there by, but hour, 2 hours early, you're waiting for things to settle down. Your downwind is covered. Second, you're getting in just in time, so you can use the gray light to get into your stand, to hide into your stand as you're getting in, and making sure that your downwind isn't too saturated with scent for too long before it gets light. And the third one, and the option we use a lot, and we're going to use it a lot out here, is a post daybreak stand location. I'll use this for an example right here. Bucks would be just cruising left to right through this location during the rut, or going from food source out to this bedding area. We actually have trails that come in from the side over here. We're at the top of the draw stand location. The deer can feed in, follow the edge all the way out to the point in bed. There's bedding opportunity all the way through there. I want to get into that stand when the coast is clear out in the fields. We're going in between food plots that are 50, 75 yards that way and 100, 150 yards that way. We're coming in between these locations. We're getting into that stand. We see the coast is clear. There's that chance that a buck could be right around that tree stand when we're getting in, but that's why we're getting in quickly, quietly. We're climbing right up the stand, sitting down, we're getting ready. We don't have a minute or two to linger. And think about it, if that buck's cruising through there, he's only cruising through in that area, that little window of 75, 80 yards, 100 yards in a very short period of time. He might clear that area in 20 seconds, a minute and a half, but he has to be right there at that window for you to spook him. So it's safe, really safe getting into that location. That would typically be a half hour after daylight, or whenever the deer tell me they're leaving the fields out here. We're going to go straight into that through a switchgrass edge, get into the stand. And those are those stand locations, even out on public land, where you might have a large field or a large clear cut to cross through. It's just fresh clear cut, and the deer, lots of deer coming into that location. Maybe you have distant ag fields that you can come through, but you're going through those food sources, waiting for the coast to clear. You're getting into that stand location. And then you have perpendicular movement to your access. Perpendicular hunting access, you're going to the stand, you have movement left to right in front of you, and you're getting in there a little bit after daybreak, letting the field deer get out of the fields and food sources that you're walking through to get to those locations. So those are the three top and only morning stand location entrances that I use throughout the entire season. 75% of my deer have been killed going in, especially the post daybreak stand entrance and the just in time stand break entrance, because I don't have that ultra early stand where I can blow my wind off of. We have some here. We have the one we were just at in that evening stand we highlighted across the farm. So that's one that I can get in. We have a few of those where we have our downwind blocked. But those are the three ways that I recommend you get into a stand in the morning. Again, 75% of my deer are killed in the morning. Bucks move sometimes 3 times longer during the morning hours. I believe it's because of the cool of the day. There's a lot of mornings where it's 27 degrees, toe numbing morning. It's going to get to 52, but it's not even going to get to 50 degrees till 2, 3 in the afternoon. You have the whole morning still in the upper 20s, upper 30s, low 40s. Lots of comfortable deer movement and buck movement in those conditions. And speaking of morning stands, 3 best times to enter a morning stand location. We could have broke this down maybe an early season opening day chance where bucks are going back to a certain bedding area off a field source and you're sneaking in around down the backside and wait for them to come into you. I think Mike Pelletier had a hunt, Hardcore Pursuits, like that last year in North Dakota maybe, where there's this bachelor group of bucks coming back way to a bedding area. They got in there very early, waited for them to come into them, and they shot them. So there's that chance in the early season to take a chance. But once hunting pressure is applied, a lot of those movements are not existent in the morning until especially you get into maybe acorns dropping early to mid-October and you're on an acorn flat in a long distance between morning feeding, afternoon bedding, daytime bedding. You're getting to that location safely. but the action really heats up in morning stands when it gets into the pre-rut, rut, post-rut, and then in that secondary rut in early December. We had a great muzzleloader hunt where Dylan was sitting with me, and we had a nice 4-year-old 10 point that we shot as he came in chasing a doe. That was in that secondary rut time, and that was that just-in-time stand location entrance where we got in there 10-15 minutes before daylight because we didn't want anything to be spooked on the downwind. So I can give you examples of all these types of hunts, but bottom line, those are the 3 best times to get into a morning stand, and those are the 3 best times to get into a morning stand as far as it relates to the season, that opening day push, maybe pre-rut, post-rut, peak rut, into the secondary rut. Those are all great morning times to focus on, and let where the deer are at as it relates to the stand location determine when you access that stand, and you'll find those 3 access for morning strategies to be the best, and I hope you can apply those this year. I've taken advantage of morning hunting for over 30 years now. It's a great time to hone in on a mature buck that's going to be moving a lot more during daylight than he is in the afternoon and evening. Great time to sit in a tree stand this year. Really try to find that next great morning stand and apply these strategies when you go in to hunt that stand this fall, and I can't wait to hear about it in the comments below. Well, if you made it to the end of this video, you're obviously interested in whitetail habitat solutions, what I have to teach, and you will love my new web class series. The first one is how to design your whitetail property. It's out now. The link is in the description. I invite you to check it out. It's on my website. Can't wait to hear about it.